There we go. Let me make sure that I'm muted here because I don't hear myself thrice. Okay. Hi there. Thank you for being here. I want to thank in advance to our panelists, Eduardo, Sofia, and Menchu to be here. The purpose of this webinar
Thank you.
is to make, let me record this because I forgot. There you go. Okay. The purpose of this webinar is to make sure that we understand exactly how accelerators can get into creating community without physical spaces. Usually everything in an accelerator or in the entrepreneurial ecosystem happened in a physical place. We gathered there. We usually had a little bit of food, maybe some drinks, some networking. But when the pandemic hit, all those kind of events just got out of what we expected. And then we needed exactly to understand how we're going to create community in cohorts when community is not only this part of hanging out and maybe like getting to know each other into a personal level, but also how we support each other with our entrepreneurial needs, or when we have questions, or after we go through a mentor, how do we discuss that? That is also part of community. And for us, it's super important. When the pandemic hit in P18, for example, we were like this close, like 2 weeks before the Gen 7 demo day. So that was like, we had to scramble and how are we going to make that happen? We have never done that before. So we had just 2 weeks to make it happen. And then when Gen 8 came, we decided it was going to be a small cohort, only Puerto Rican companies, but we did want to make sure that they felt that there was nothing missing. So we sort of replicated our welcome events and we had some virtual interactions, but it was on pre-age free when we actually said we have more than 40 companies. And it's easy maybe with 13, but how do you do that with 40? How do you make them interact with other people? So I remember that Eduardo was very clear, like maybe a month or a month and a half before we started pre-18, that we needed to be very purposeful and really have initiatives in place to make this happen. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get to this, I want you guys to introduce each other a little bit. Eduardo, tell us who you are, what you do, what you love, and then Sofia, and then Menchu.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eduardo Padial, Operations Director at Para 18. Basically, I oversee everything in regards to business development, market communications, and the operations of this program. And it's a pleasure to have you here.
Sofia, go right ahead.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to collaborate with Parallel 18. I'm Sofia Stolberg. I'm one of the co-founders at Piloto 151 Co-working Spaces here in Puerto Rico. And I'm also co-founder of Piloto Meo, which is our most recent startup. And I love community. So it's a great topic for me to talk about.
I know. I remember when we used to go to Piloto to those first events, and Piloto Viejo San Juan was the place where all the events used to happen. And then everyone would just walk up to La Factoria those days.
That's right.
Menchu,
that's right.
Hi, everyone.
My manager, introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Menchu Agüeros. Yes, Menchu. That's my nickname. My real name is Mari Carmen, but nobody knows that. I'm the outreach manager here at Parallel 18. I've been working here since August, so I'm a newbie in this in the industry, and I think this is my first live, actually.
There you go. I mean,
Nice.
you're a newbie in P18, but you have a bunch of experience with events and creating all sorts of community, which is why I really wanted you to be part of this. So let's just jump to it. And I want you guys to tell me, and we can start with Eduardo, and then Sofia, and then Menchu, so we don't keep like, who goes first? Eduardo, what is community for you?
Yes, and in the sense of an accelerator or entrepreneurial program, it's a filter where the program establishes of who can be part of the community, right? That can really enhance what we want to go as a mission, which is to make Puerto Rico a innovation hub for and with underrepresented founders. And what we've seen is that what we want to do as an accelerator is really be experts of engagements. And those engagements have very good conversations. And those conversations can occur at their very early stages, and you need help at that early stage. And further on, when you have your Series A, Series B, those other types of conversations. And how can the community, in this case, Para 18, can help you in those regards. Furthermore, it's what resources are available, what's in the network that is available for you to be able to hit those milestones and goals as a startup. What we usually do is that we have a understanding of what are your unknowns, what you don't know, right? And from there, the community can help you with that mentality so you can go for hyper growth. And once you understand what you don't know, then the Para18 community and especially our Para18 team can really help you engage with our community, understanding who to talk to, what resources are available from our Para18 Connect program to investors, to mentors. And one of the best things to do is to have those sporadic conversations, or what I like to call those brinca verja moments, where behind me you have two people talking, and all of a sudden you have someone else hearing that conversation, and they're experts about that, and they come in and give their perspective. That's something really beautiful about this type of space. And we bit by bit started to adapt those physical moments, right, in this space to a virtual one. And that's what definitely I can give you more insight about that today.
Amazing. Sophia, tell us, what is community for you?
So in a word, community for me is trust. It's trust that the people who are affiliated with where you are or what you are part of think a certain way, do things a certain way, share some of the same values, right? So sometimes community is achieved through events. And very early on in the Puerto Rico entrepreneurship ecosystem, we were very much getting started. So it was all about events and a certain type of events that allowed entrepreneurs to be vulnerable, to talk about their mistakes. We ran fuck up nights for a lot of years, if you remember those, right? And a lot of the events that we ran were really about sharing those stories, becoming vulnerable, trusting each other, starting to understand what the startup ethos was really all about. But community at a certain point in an ecosystem's development is also implicit, right? At this point, I think, fast forward 7 years since we started Piloto 151 as the first co-working space, everybody understands what startups are, right? We very much have a vibrant startup culture. And that then becomes implicit. If you're part of the startup ecosystem, then you know that you behave a certain way, that you give back because you would have wanted others to help you when you started out, that you don't just take, right? That you're able to share in a confidential manner your ideas, that you don't have to worry about somebody stealing your idea or doing something that is not in a way part of what the startup ethos is really about. So I think that Parallel 18 has done an amazing job at creating that sense of affiliation and status. Last week I was at a virtual conference and Seth Godin was talking about what it meant to be a part of something or to buy something. And he said that it's really all about status or affiliation, right? So what does being a part of a community give you in terms of a status role? And what does being affiliated with it mean? And I think that Parallel 18 now, 5 years later, 5+ years later, right, is really the 5 years. It's been a long time. Is really when we talk about the Puerto Rico startup ecosystem, one of the most important pillars, if not the most important one, and it's established itself as a credible accelerator that has helped hundreds of startups, not just in Puerto Rico, but also outside of Puerto Rico and worldwide, scale, connect to those resources, really develop that community that does not have to be, in a sense, in person anymore. It can be virtual.
Amazing. Thank you for your insights, Sophia. Menchu, tell me, what is community for you?
Well, I've been in the events and production industry for more than 18 years. So for me, creating creating that special bond, the engagement, as Eduardo said, that is creating community. So you have to create the experience with the people you serve, with the people you entertain, no matter the industry you're serving. So I've been doing events such as physical events, on-site events for the trust, for the Pure Science Trust, like the Forward Summit, like the PRCCI Clinical Research Summit. And those are physical events. So you go there, you have your conference, you engage with the conference, you go to a concert, or I've been doing also sports events. So you go to a court, you go to a baseball park, and you watch a game. So you create that engagement there. So now it's very difficult because we have to translate that to the virtual side. And that's gonna be it's been a challenge all these years. So as in summary, for me, it's that engagement, that bond, and that connection that you create with your audience. So that's for me, your community.
Amazing. And let's just dive a little bit into that and how is it different creating it in person and virtual. Eduardo, um, tell us a little bit about what you saw, because when we had Gen 8, you were in that transition as well of sort of like moving from operations manager, which was the person in charge of making the acceleration thing happen, and then you were moved to the position you have now, which is operations director. So what did you notice within our efforts in Gen 8 that let you understand and force and push the team to think outside of the box to build community?
Yeah, let's dive into that. There's a lot of things now that we're very proud of what we've done in P18 Gen 3, and now that we're going to execute in P18 Gen 9. One of the big things is to listen to the community, and it comes in various ways of, hey, I need attention here, in something particular, and we relied on that to be organic in a physical space. So first, listen to the community. And it can be something also of timing, right? We have also entrepreneurs that are mothers that we have to listen of, hey, this timing does not work at all, right? And we have to then adjust right there. So there's a few things that we have to consider. First, that in a physical space, there are more organic conversations occurring. In a virtual space, you can hit that leave meeting much more easily than ever before. And that shuts off completely those organic conversations. So what did we do? We created a task force from inside our team that allowed to really understand what are the things that occur when we go into our co-working space that works, and how can we replicate that in a virtual setting. One of the examples that I can give to the community is that one that has been very effective, which is when we provide a mentor session of around 60 to 90 minutes, the idea is that that mentor session is to provide a mentality and insights, and for people to talk about what they learned throughout the co-working space, right? And to go and directly to the mentor afterwards. In a virtual setting, what we've done is that we give them the 60 minutes, 90 minutes to learn about that mentor session. 2 days afterwards, we have that engagement occur to talk about what they learned, right? So they don't miss that conversation of what is actually occurring in that mentor session. Furthermore, we did something that is having our open doors. Each and every week, having 1 or 2 hours of, hey, we're gonna be here. If you want to come in, it's up to you. We wanted to replicate that open door policy that we have at Parada 18 of interrupting us. We want to hear the good things, the bad things, so that they can feel that we're there. Another aspect has been of, and this is one especially one of the most difficult ones, which is making sure that everyone knows each other. So we want to make it as fun as possible, in having a sort of party interactions right there, for, in a sense, forcing those engagements. And I think one of the key things that have been, we're very thankful for, is that the founders provided feedback, and we heard it consistently and adapted to it as quickly as possible. And second, that we were able to then really make the proper adjustments to reach the end results that we want to get at the end of the day. So that, I think we can deep dive more into that, but I think that gives more context of where we're headed.
Yeah, most definitely. I think that one of the things that you brought in early on, in Gen 8, I remember in Gen 8 was the first time we used the icebreaker platform, right? And that was a sort of, and we're gonna dive into this a little bit more when we keep talking about community, but providing that space in which randomly people are just connected with each other and they have to look at each other, like maybe it's just 3 minutes, but it's like that moment in which maybe in the office you would have said, oh, I'm awkwardly running into you in the water fountain. Well, now I'm awkwardly running into you in this virtual space. So I want to bring Menchu to this part of the conversation. Yes. Menchu, you were part of the task force that we created for this, how to create community in pre-18.
Yes.
And I want you to tell us a little bit about how did that happen? Like, how do you guys organize? Like, what tools did you find? And in which ways do you think it was the best way of implementation? Just walk us through it so that people who are sort of facing this problem and how to do this have an idea on how to.
Yes. One of the first tasks I had once I started working here was to search for an application or a platform so that we can virtually bring the office space to that platform, because we couldn't come to the office. So I worked with Valerie and Bettina. Valerie find out this great platform called Pragly, that basically it's like a virtual office. It has we replicated our office in that platform. So we had our Bacalaito conference room, our Tirijara conference room. We had the office, the kitchen, the water fountain, the games, the area where we play games. And it was great because all the meetings for the operations team were able to be there doing those meetings, even also with the marketing and communications team. We still use Slack for all our communications, and it's a great tool for communicating every event that we had, direct messages with the startups. And the icebreaker, one that you mentioned, I think about the icebreaker as an dating app, because you can actually meet the people, ask for 10 minutes, 5 or 6 questions about anything. They were random questions, but you get to know each other. Even I could get to know Sofia, or if I was new, I could get to know more Wanda or Eduardo. So those were tools and applications and platforms that help us a lot in getting to know each other and see each other, because we didn't have our space here. So
yeah, sort of like speed dating icebreaker.
It was like a speed dating, yes. I love it actually, because I got to know a lot of people that I didn't know, my coworkers, the startups. So, and we had a very big cohort, that Gen 3, it was humongous. It was 40 startups. 42. All of a sudden, 42, we started 42, yeah. All of a sudden, and we needed to know each other because we haven't seen them. We didn't know them. So those
I mean, I remember those first icebreakers, like it was your first weeks in P18, and like we got together into one of the rooms and we were getting to know each other better because of it.
Sure.
Menchu,
we also and also, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, don't worry. I wanted to ask you about going a little bit into the social interaction part of it.
Yes.
Like we were known for this welcome events in which everyone just got there
Sure,
and
that
meet each
was,
other.
yeah.
So go over a little bit of how we did that and
Yeah,
how we amplified the reach when we included alumni.
yeah, we created two, I think were two big events. One was the Christmas event. We did a webinar with a DJ, and it started first for the pre-18ers, and we opened the invitation to all of our alumni. So, and it was great because we had a party and we had a blast in our homes, dancing like crazy people with a very good DJ. And the other thing we did is we usually did here breakfast or lunches, and we on January after our Christmas recess we decided to send all of the Gen 3 pre-18ers like a breakfast kit, and they received and they received like from Brands of Puerto Rico, like this package with oatmeals, with pan sobao, with coffee, and we told them that on some date we're gonna meet and we're gonna have breakfast with you guys. And it was a very good experience because we met with all of them. We catch up what they did on the Christmas recess, and we told them about the future plans for the other half of the program. So we did those events, and we created a very good
Sophia,
community there.
I remember your girls dancing around
Yeah,
at all those
Yeah.
parties, having a blast.
that's right.
So I want to know your perspective, not only, I mean, as a community builder, because of course, you are a community builder, like part of the community we have in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the entrepreneurial community in the island is greatly due to your efforts at the beginning when the ecosystem was developing. So I really want to know, how did you perceive all of these efforts, especially since you were a partner of P18 since we began, and this was like your first time actually participating in the program?
So I have to say, and I gave you guys all this feedback. I really kudos to the entire team because it went above my expectations. In all honesty, I think running a program like this intense in a virtual setting and having to do so quickly without preparation, because obviously the pandemic took everybody by surprise, was exceptional the way that you did it. And I think it was a combination of things. So first, I want to echo with what Eduardo said and what Menchu said about the virtual platforms, right? It's very important to use platforms that enable that engagement and that bond that Menchu was talking about, that in turn builds that trust, which to me is really what community is all about: trust between different people so that they are able to help each other and push each other forward, right? So it was excellent use of technology, and Icebreaker was a good example of it. But even the Union VC platform was really great in allowing you to organize all the events, see what office hours were available from the community, and take advantage of them. The second thing that I would say is that you did a very good use of creating different events, right? And including people, right? Because we're all different, and it's a very different thing when you can plan for it and you don't have a pandemic. But one of the hardest things about this pandemic, especially for working parents, was that because of the nature of the pandemic, we had less help, right? So less nannies, less grandparents. We couldn't see the grandparents, right? Because we were afraid that they would be exposed. So it was very challenging to juggle that, and creating this type of event where even my daughters could participate in a virtual setting, I think was really important. And then the other thing that I would say is preparedness, right? Of the speakers and of the team. it's so important, especially in a virtual setting where people can just turn on and off their camera, they can disengage really quickly, to be very purposeful about what you're trying to accomplish with X event or X speaker. It's very important to be more prepared than usual, because you don't have that live interaction with people on the other side that in a way have to be engaged because you will notice if they're not, right? So that I think was really important, making sure that all of the meetings had a purpose, that they were well structured, that if they started at a certain hour, they started at a certain hour and ended at a certain time, and that your speakers and your mentors and even your entrepreneurs setting the expectation. If you're going to set up a meeting with a mentor, you better be prepared. Don't walk in there and wing it, because it's their valuable time. And it's a very different context when it's virtual. So I think that was also really nicely done. And finally, I would say that you could tell, right, that the effort was there, that you were being very intentional about working around the feedback that you got from people. I was one that gave you feedback for a specific, I recall, and you mentioned this, Eduardo, a specific time that you set the pitch practice, and it was 7 p.m. Very difficult for parents with kids, right? It's like hour zero at that moment. And you pivoted. So then you didn't create those events at those hours again. And I think the importance of understanding that this was new to everybody, that everybody was learning as we went along and as things changed and as we got more comfortable with virtual. And you saw that even within a short period of time. So again, kudos to you, because you were really able to do those three things really well.
You know, Sophia, no, I think you hit on a few things that, first, thanks for that. But I think you highlight a lot of things that that are really important for us. I think it's not just having the toolbox. It doesn't matter the amount of platforms that you have. It's how you use them. It's not a hammer.
Right.
It's not using Zoom all the time, or using Practical all the time, or using Iceberg all the time. You really need to use your gut to have a sense of when to use it in a proper moment. And for that, it's listening to founders. And one of the things that we also are doing is that our mentors' time, it has to be more strategic than ever, because they're also putting out fires, right? Yep. They're also working on the situations because of the pandemic, and now that they're also going through these growth phases. And what we've done is that, okay, if you want to meet with that mentor, then here you have to specify the reasons why. And we share that with the mentor, and there we can really have a more purposeful engagement between our community overall. So yeah, no, definitely.
You did that
on the things that we're focused on.
Yes, I can resume that too, to the discipline. There's a lot of discipline from all the parts, the startups, us as staff, and the mentors. So it's discipline overall.
Yeah, and probably it
can't really grow or scale
know,
without
like their time.
Exactly.
Yeah, and because people are like, their time right now, it's so tight that if you go through that structure, people are going to know that you're going to respect their time, you're going to respect their knowledge, and they're also going to be more willing to keep collaborating with you. Because at the beginning, like, there was a bunch of virtual events and everyone wanted just to chip in, and then everyone started to get exhausted. And then I'm going to go to the places where I know my time is going to be maximized and I'm not going to be wasting time. So that gets me to the next part of what I wanted to discuss here. And if the people in the audience or the people who are watching on YouTube have questions, like, this is the moment, bring them. We're going to just filter them and put them here to our panelists. But I wanted to talk a little bit about results and business. One of the things that was really important to us at the beginning was understanding exactly how founders were going to get the most of the opportunities that we usually had to give them when we were in the office space, or when we had meetings with corporate partners and we got them to those offices, or when the mentors were there. There were like specific moments that were going with interaction. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how did we switch and what did we learn and what tips maybe we can give to the audience on how to purposefully make those learning moments happen and how to purposefully create those moments of interaction with partners that actually lead into something valuable for startups. Um, so Eduardo, taking into consideration this that we're talking about mentors and office hours, walk us through your train of thought when you decided how we were going to switch a little bit the mentor session and the mentor office hours.
Yeah, so there's two frameworks that came into mind. The first one is one that we have internally, which is where are the high volume and high priority tasks, right? And how can we continue to be able to be more efficient on them? So that gives us time to work on the customized asks by our startups, so that way we can innovate with them. So we had to go back on, okay, how can we be more efficient on things that were usually already set in stone? Yeah, this is efficient. We have everything set. And second, what are the things that we're doing now can help us in the future, right? What are the things that are doing virtually that are going to help us add more value to our community in its end? And we learned a few things. The first one, it really helped the scope on the events and the connections that we're providing. Mm-hmm. For example, the pitch practices or the interactions between all mentors with founders. For the first time, we were able to have feedback and interactions, not just from mentors from Puerto Rico, but we're able then to have mentors give their feedback, and they were based in Boston or New York or San Francisco or Argentina. We didn't do that before, but because of the adaptation to go virtually, it gave us even better insights and better global mentality into these pitches. Also, now we can do more by having that adaptation to do virtual on what things can be more on demand, right? What things can then be recorded so that way we can really take advantage of those mentor interactions, right? What can be recorded now that can then be played afterwards and go deep dive into what they're learning. And third of all, now we have the ability to say, yeah, you don't have to be here in order to make an impact in the community. And that goes to show on what we're doing for P18 Gen 9, that we are looking at every single aspect of what we offer in a virtual setting, while still being linked and providing you with all the needed resources to be present here in the island. So we continue to wanting to walk the talk, right, of innovation, but at the same time knowing that we don't want to build parchos. We don't want to build things that are just for one moment. We want to build things that can be sustainable for the future.
Amazing. And it's that because the world's going to change. It's going to be totally different from now on. No matter if we get back to the office, this virtual settings are going to keep happening. Sophia, I wanted to talk to you and ask you a little bit about your experience with these mentors. I mean, you are a very busy person, like you're running multiple businesses, you're working into a bunch of things, you have your kids. So it's a lot. So how did you find this experience with the mentors? And also the connections that we provided with corporate partners and others, did you think they were efficient enough? Was it what you expected? I'm going to ask you forever, was it what you expected? And you can be totally honest. It's just that I want people to understand that maybe sometimes you plan for stuff and then they don't necessarily go as you plan. So we really want to talk to the people who experience it firsthand.
So I'll just say, kind of responding to what Eduardo was saying, which I thought was really right on. One of the really great things about the Parallel 18 team is that you guys practice what you preach. So you expect companies to be adaptable because we're startups and we're, figuring it out, but you're also adaptable as well, right? And that's one of the pillars of running a startup and scaling it. And the other one I would say is discipline, right? And Menchu alluded to this, but I really believe that if you don't have disciplined people, disciplined thought, and that doesn't translate to disciplined action, then you can't really create something that's great, right? And that's actually from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. So it's very fitting. In terms of being busy, as you mentioned, Wanda, I think that the busiest people tend to be the ones that are most accessible and tend to be the ones that you can delegate things to and you know they're going to happen. And that's all because of structure. And as in any program, and this doesn't apply just to Parallel 18, it applies to everything, including to how you lead and grow your startup and get to the next phase. It's really what you make of it, right? You can go into Parallel 18 or any other world-class accelerator and just kind of let the program pass through you, or you can pass through the program, right? And what that means is that, especially in a virtual setting, you have to turn the hustle on. You know, if you want some connection, if you want to go after something, a specific market, and you think that the connections the accelerator has can get you there faster, then you need to go for it and you need to follow up. And that's just the way to do startups, right? So it's not any different. But it's really important that if you decide to go through a program like Parallel 18, you take advantage of it, because that's what it's there for. And it is very intense, and it's meant to be that way so that you prepare for growth and so that you're actually able to deliver results by the time you finish the program. So for me, you know, the Parallel 18 Connect program was amazing because you have all of these great partners that are willing and able in many cases to support startups. And I went that route with a partner that you guys probably didn't get a lot of people tapping into because we are in snail mail and it was UPS. And I'm sure not that many people asked for that connection in the past, but I have a meeting with them at 11 now. You know, we've had probably 10 meetings since the pre-18 program, and we're still in conversations. And it takes time, like everything, right? But it's about that follow-up. And again, it's about what you do with the program and how you're able to leverage it to your advantage to grow your startup. Because yes, being in a program like Parallel 18 gives you credibility, it gives you a certain status in the community. But in the end, that's all well and done. What's really important is that you get your startup to grow and you really start leveraging those resources to do so.
And when you have a valuable product that actually presents innovation and real change and disruption to an industry, as such as snail, for example, like no one would think, oh, what will be the problems here? It's really satisfying to learn that even if it was in a virtual setting, like you guys are still able to go through that route, because we know B2B customers take a long time to close, but you're still there, you're still harvesting that connection. And it's amazing to see that it came in part from the efforts of the program and that didn't necessarily got affected totally because of the pandemic.
It came entirely because of the program. I did not have those connections. So, it's, you know, 100% Christina and her team connected us, and you know, we took it from there. But that's what really, that's what an accelerator does. It opens those doors for you, right? Now, what you do when that door is open is really up to you, right? And Definitely. How you go through it is really up to you in the end.
Amazing.
Menchu, I wanted to go a little bit over that's always the main event of every generation. It's the demo day.
Yes.
And we had some experience at the beginning of the pandemic dealing with demo days. Actually, Sophia has been to many of our physical in-person demo days. So she's also gonna like get her opinion here at some point. We had done several demo days before in an online format. I mean, we had Gen 7, but back then it was in the beginning of the pandemic. Everyone just wanted to tune in and stuff. The challenges were not as many as we had with pre-18. We had 40 companies. We had exhaustion everywhere from virtual events. So talk to us a little bit about the process that we went through to think the best ways of going through this?
Sure.
And what actually were the results that surprised us?
Yes. The beauty of our demo day or demo event, actually, because we had to divide the event in 2 days. I think it was the organization that our marketing and communications department had, led by you, Wanda. So kudos to you.
Nice.
And this was essential. So we basically, to keep the attention of our viewers, we divided the demo day in 2 days, as I mentioned. We had 40 startups. So it was like 21 day or 21 one day, 19 the other day. Presenting. We asked them all to do a pre-recording of their pitch. And that was great because we gave them rules, we gave them specs of how to do it. We helped them all the way through the process of the recording. Some of them came here and record their pitch. Others did it by themselves. As Sophia, she did a great production. And basically, yeah, it was beautiful, your video.
Thank you.
And the Q&As after the pitch was done live. So we strategized, we practiced, and we were clear, everyone was clear about the rules. After that, or during the event, we've worked with a script. It was a minute by minute script. We had a technical script also of what the MC was gonna say, what image it was gonna be on the screen. So it was very, very technical and very produced. It was like a big
TV production
event.
It was a TV production.
Basically, it was a production. Yeah, it was like a TV program, basically. The most amazing thing was the results, because we had over 200 people connected each day, and we had connections. Startups really connected with people, with other clients, prospect clients, and some of them, they even closed their deals, like Laura Napoli with Vital. She started selling her product in Supermax, and it was all thanks to the demo day, because the Supermax guy was connected in our demo day. So it was great, but it was very organized, step by step, with instructions, with rules. It was a real production. So I don't have to envy any other event, because we did great. And also with the burden that the second day, we had a power outage and nobody knew about that. So you have to deal with that stuff on the way of the production life, that you can have a power outage. But thanks to the generator and our amazing internet, we could go through. So
we powered through.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that also helped us in terms of connection with this demo day is that in past demo days, we were not really purposeful with the invite list, because it was going to be live. I mean, we didn't really get into the webinar stuff. And I think structuring into a webinar, actually sending direct invitations to our partners, as we would have done in a physical in-person demo event. I think that also helped us had the people that needed to be there, and then made them feel the seriousness of the situation, in terms of these startups have a lot to offer. This is the time you're going to take for this. It's going to be just 2 hours. So make sure you're there and you're present. So I think that actually curating that list and letting them know it was going to be purposeful, giving them the tools, the landing page, X and Y, so they could browse it. I think those things we did before were as influential as when it came all together organized. And I want Sophia to give us her opinion here, because I think you were in all of our in-person demo events. So how did you see the difference, or how do you see it was better, worse? What's your opinion on how we managed to move that from the physical to the virtual?
So I think one of the things that you said is right on. when you had these big physical events, obviously a lot of things in physical events are amazing, right? But because you have such a big setting and you had 500 people there, these demo events were always very big, it was sort of more difficult to get connected to the right people, right? And in addition, I think that virtual brings a convenience that on-site events don't have. And it's that you can invite people that don't live on the island and perhaps didn't have the availability to physically fly and be at a demo day, but you can invite them to be online. And for us, it was really great because we got connected to investors. We're in conversations with them right now. And it was a direct result of the demo day. They saw our pitch and they even wrote in the chat, can we get connected to Piloto Mayo? And we're still talking to them today, right? But had it been a physical event, they might have not been able to come. And so I think that is one of the things that as entrepreneurs, it's one of those things that I just tell everyone that wants to hear it. You now have an opportunity to DM people and tap people that are working in their house, that are not flying all over the world as they used to, that are less mobile and have more attention online, to ask them, hey, would you like to mentor me? Or would you like to see my product? And you'd be surprised. People answer, even if it's cold DMing, right? So I think that's one of the really great things. I also think that you guys obviously did a really great production, but we're very good about making sure that the startups were ready. So there were like 10 practices, 10 pitch practices. I'm exaggerating, but it was a lot. And it was good. It was really good because, again, when you do a pitch on site, like a physical event versus a virtual one, the same thing applies. You need to grab people's attention quickly. You need to be more prepared than you would if people are sitting down and they have to watch you, right? Because you know that on the other side, someone can just, do work on their computer or do something else and disengage. So being very prepared, I think, was essential for startups. And I saw the difference that it made. I saw the first pitches of a lot of the startups and then their final pitches, and I was impressed by all of them. So I think you guys did a great job with that as well.
Thank you. Amazing. I'm spotlighting you guys in our YouTube feed because we have a question from a YouTube viewer. And the question is, in the context of the business itself, not the process of creating one, what does community mean for startups whose business models is not tied to the attention economy? And I want you, both of you guys, to dive into this question and answer it. Eduardo, maybe you can go first, and then Sophia.
That's a great question. And I'm taking that question in context of, what if I'm not a media content creator, right? I'm not creating something that is for people to watch and I'm not producing. Look, same thing could have been done here in Paralaitin. Oh, I'll just give you connections, just sit down and that's it, and in and out and overall and for nothing to occur. For a startup, I think it's really honing down the value proposition that you have and having fans of it. Having people talk about the value proposition that you have is huge. And if you're not taking advantage of those conversations, of those dialogues, then it's going to dilute bit by bit, right? You need to add a lumber to that fire. And that's where you need to then encourage for more word of mouth. We have the former head of growth from Slack being here, Holly Chen. And what she mentions, it's about you start growing with word of mouth and encourage that and exploit that with public relations. And then you consider what would be paid content, right? So building community, at the end of the day, it's not having something of a discussion being opened in your website or doing webinars per se. It's how to encourage your consumer to really talk about value propositions that you're having, and to extend that word of mouth. There is where you can really look at how to build that community. And it can be powerful because first, you have feedback consistently, right? Because if they're fans and the NPS is very high, meaning that, hey, I can't live without this, then you need to consistently hear them out of when something's going wrong, to be there with them. And secondly, if they're fans, create that swag, right? Create having people express their love for your company, and that means expressing their brand. And things like that is where you can really enhance community. Not necessarily it's creating content.
100% agree with what Eduardo said. I would say that in this conference I was at, where Seth Godin was talking about basically marketing, and I love Seth Godin, right? You can tell. He said something that really stuck with me, and he said, attention is overrated. You only need it to earn trust. Okay, so what does that mean in this context? And it goes back to what Eduardo was talking about. It's really about getting attention, not burning your trust in the process. And how do you do that? All you have to do is find 10 people, right, who will give you the benefit of the doubt, and then keep your promise to them. Keep that brand promise so that the word spreads. Because the worst thing that you could do is get the attention of a small group of people and then not keep your brand promise, right? And that's really, at the end of the day, what we want to do when we build a product, when we build a service, when we build a company. We're really talking about making a change in someone else, in our customer, right? And making that change happen so that other people want to talk about the benefit that they gained with your product or your service. So really putting yourself on the hook for a very small group of people is really the way forward. And for that, it's not about attention. Attention is really that tool to gain that trust, to gain that word of mouth, and then to slowly but surely start scaling.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. I mean, we're 5 minutes out to like say we're done. So I wanted just to recap a little bit on what you guys have been saying. And I think the main learnings for our audience might be that there are 3 things that are key on building a community in person and in a virtual setting. And that is purpose, like making sure that this is how you want to move forward, having a clear goal of what you want to do and be intentional about it. And that's not only for community, it's for any change you want to do in the startup ecosystem or the world. You need to be intentional. I also got from you guys that organization and respecting people's time is one of the very important keys on making this happen and creating this community, because people need respect and all of our times are up to here with meetings. So this will help us obviously like to get there. And listening, understanding when we might be blind to certain situations because they don't really affect us and we don't have them, and understanding exactly that, okay, now I listen. Maybe it's just 1 or 2 founders who have this problem. It doesn't matter. They're really part of my community and I really need to see how to adapt. Maybe it's just 1 who just opened and said, hey, this is a problem for me. But maybe that means there are like 4 or 5 that maybe did not really know how to just go to the group and say it. So listening, even if it's just 1 person that comes up and tells you about something, might be key also in creating this community and making the things that we're talking about happen. I want to thank Sophia. I know you are super busy. Thanks a lot for being here. And Menchu and Eduardo, I know you guys have a bunch of stuff to do and you said yes to my crazy idea of just making this happen. And I want to remind the audience that applications for Gen 9 are open now and they close on May 10th. You have until 11:59 p.m. ASAT UTC-4 to submit that application. If you have any questions, the email is simple, Kobi, C-O-B-I, @parallel18.com. Send your questions and we'll answer. Guys, any last parting thoughts you want to put out there?
Sure. I would just say that even when the pandemic is finally over, and who knows what that will look like, things have changed. And I think they have changed for good. So one of the really great things that we all learned in the pandemic is that a lot more can be done if we incorporate technology and if we use it to expand our programming, our community, our engagement. And so what that means is that what I envision happening is that there's always going to be this hybrid now between on-site and virtual. And going back to this idea of on demand, right, that Eduardo was talking about, I think that's here to stay. So understanding that people are just much more open and conscious about their ability to tap into resources that may not be physically in your ecosystem is a great thing. And it's a reminder that we are in a globalized economy now more than ever. And that if you want to grow your startup beyond the borders of wherever it is that you might be, then you need to really reach out to people outside. And it doesn't mean getting on a plane necessarily. In fact, it's probably a better idea to do all the pre-work virtually. And then if you finally have to go and get on a plane and sit down, then great. But know that people are more open to these interactions and connections more than ever, and that virtual is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I have to add something to what Sophia says. The other day I was in a meeting and somebody said, virtual, you have to embrace it. You have to embrace the virtual thing, the virtual el cansancio. So there's no other way. You have to do it.
Yeah,
We have to do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna encourage everyone that is listening to us, and thank you for listening to us here until the end. 3 things: pay it forward, give back, and what you've learned, just give back. That's where you can have a role in the community. Second of all, do intros. If you see that there's possible strategic initiative between 2 people, do it, no strings attached. Really, they're gonna pay back at somewhere form along the way. And third of all, be vulnerable. Go out and network. Do embarrassing stuff. That's okay. So that way you can get better recognition of what you're doing. I think that's those three things are a key component of having an excellent community member in Para18 or even outside or wherever you're at.
I love that. Definitely pay it forward.
Yeah, always. I mean, it's
and
the only way the circle keeps.
Apply.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, please apply. I love seeing applications. That's what I run. Apply. So I love seeing those applications come in. So thank you guys a lot. I will leave you to continue your VC mornings. Thanks to everyone who has been here and connected. And see you soon. Remember, send questions to